Good morning. Welcome to our Hurricane Preparedness Media Day event. I'm Jake Sauer, Director of Public Safety for Manatee County Government, and I want to thank each of you for attending this morning. The news media is a critical partner to help reach our Manatee County residents, and with the county information throughout the year, especially during hurricane season, you guys are one of our most important partners. We rely on you, each of you, reporters, photographers, and video production crews to relay updates to our residents, and the need for timely and accurate coverage is never more important than it is in an emergency. Over the years, Manatee County government has forged strong working relationships with many of you, and we appreciate your willingness to help us with broadcasting our messages during emergencies to help inform our Manatee County residents. Behind me is Chief Steve Litchauer, and he's going to provide you with an overview of this year's hurricane season, along with the messages most important to our residents so they can remain Manatee ready and safe during a hurricane. And with that, I'll turn it over to Chief Litchauer for a 20-minute presentation, and we'll take some time to answer your questions afterwards.
Thank you, Director. As he said, I'm Steve Litchauer, Chief Emergency Management, and what we want to do today is just pass out important information that citizens know how to prepare, what to look for, and most of all, as he stated, to be alert and watch the media as the season goes on. What we're going to cover today is a couple of important things. Know your home, and each of these topics we'll touch on individually. So know your home, know your level, evacuation zones, and then we'll give some ideas and some pointers on securing your home, sandbag and shelter locations, the when to call 911, when not to call, and when to use our newer 311 system, and then bring out and bring attention to our new Alert Manatee and Manatee Ready notification systems. So as we know, last year was a little bit busy. We were predicted at 16 storms and 8 hurricanes, and of course it turned into 30 storms and 13 hurricanes. So quite a busy last year, but we try to tell people whatever those predictions are, do not just focus on we're going to have X amount of storms. As we have said and will continue to say, it only takes one. We look back in 2018 with Hurricane Michael, Panhandle probably hadn't seen a storm like that in 100 years. And then you saw what happened. So we want to remind citizens, don't become complacent, that it does only take one storm. This year's prediction is going to be a little above normal, not like last year, but a little above normal. So somewhere, they're predicting, if we looked at the chart, somewhere about 15 or 16 storms with probably 8 or 9 named hurricanes. So again, a little bit busier, but I'll go back to my previous statement. It just takes one, so be prepared. So in Manatee County, we've had some great building codes, and this is a chart. And what I will do is refer back to this chart a little bit later, but this is knowing your home. So as the chart shows, and I'll work backwards, an older home of 2002 back will sustain winds of 110 miles an hour or less. Between 2002 and 12, 130 miles an hour. And then 2012 onward, 150 mile an hour. Because what this is important to know is if we had a like Tropical Storm Irma that came through with winds under 70 some miles an hour, or even a category 1 or 2, most of our homes now, because we've had the building increase over the last few years, will withstand those winds. And that's important to know their homes. So in a little bit, I'll show you how we can educate the citizens if they don't know what year their home was built. Evacuation we do for 2 reasons. One is storm surge, and you will see on this chart about the surge. The surge, as I describe it, is that wall of water coming in for us on the west coast off the Gulf of Mexico, up the Manatee River through the Tampa Bay, but that's that wall of water. It's not street flooding, it's not flooding by rain, but it's that wall of water being pushed ashore. And when hurricane, or again, tropical storm Irma was coming our way in 2017, at first we were predicting surges up to 15 feet. Now it didn't happen, but we have to prepare for that because it takes hours and hours to evacuate people. It's not 1 or 2. It could be tens of thousands, or it could be actually an evacuation. We're talking a little bit, everyone from South Florida on. The other reason we evacuate, of course, is folks in mobile homes, in manufacturer homes, because those are not built for high winds. Even a good, what I describe as an afternoon thunderstorm can cause damage, and we saw that about a month ago where several mobile homes were affected by high winds. So storm surge is that wall of water coming in off the Gulf, working its way up the river, and that's what we evacuate. We'll cover how to know what zone you live in shortly. Preparing your home is very important. Again, the preparation of the home is shutters, hurricane windows. As such, the newer homes, most of them have a higher grade window. Most of them come with shutters. If you live in an older home, we recommend even plywood, something to defer debris flying. Big thing we want to remind people, a lot of people will leave for the summer, leave on vacation, and in this diagram shows outdoor furnitures, bicycles, planters, and things like that. If you're going to be gone a while or a storm's coming, pick those items up out of your yard, because those could become a projectile not only in your windows but in your neighbor's windows. Obviously, you want to make sure you have a full tank of gas, secure your doors and windows. Try to keep your trees trimmed and keep a notice. Again, as we saw during Tropical Storm Irma, what we saw was because it had rained so much, the ground was saturated, the wind came through and toppled over many, many 100-year-old trees, and those trees then would fall on houses, block roads. So it has a lot to do with saturation of the ground too, but if a tree is near your home, you could see damage. So we recommend keeping those trees trimmed as much as you can. Knowing your level is on our website, mymanatee.org/information, and sandbag and shelter locations are also listed, and I'm going to advance forward to show how to get to those locations. Good information on the website. As I tell people, if they forget anything else, just remember mymanatee.org, and then there's a search bar, and then they can look at knowing your level, sandbags, and shelters. So if we clicked on the link that took you to know your level, you see it here at the bottom of the page, and your address, and we entered, this is the address of the admin building. You click search, and one of about 6 blocks come up, but if you see here at the top of the screen, at this particular address shows that it's evacuation level CD. The reason, two areas, it's a large piece of property, so one part of the property is in C and one's in D. If someone had this, I would recommend going with the lower level, because you may be high and dry, but the roads may be underwater or whatever. So that is a way that people can enter the address at any time and see the level of evacuation. They can do that also, and I'll touch on it with our hurricane guides. They can see a map for that. If they hit on the same link, they would go into one of the other blocks that's titled Property Information. If you see about halfway down, year built, this gives you the year that dwelling or that business or building was built. Refer back to knowing your level slide. But that's not to say that someone with an older home has not replaced a roof. And when I speak about replacing roof, it's not just putting new shingles on. They could have then strapped it down and truly brought it up to current code. So just because it's an older home doesn't mean that it's not rated high, but it's more than just putting new shingles on. The other sandbag and shelter locations is on this link. If they would have hit on mymanatee.org, and the other link, or just inquire shelters. We'll first hit on sandbags. The black bags, I kiddingly say they look like pineapples, but they're sandbags. Obviously, those locations are closed. If those locations would be open, they would be red. But what I want to say, too, is the various cities, City of Palmetto, City of Braden, all the island cities, many times set up additional locations for their residents. So again, this map is great. It's interactive. We can add the locations, or if time needs, they can call 311. The pictures of the little red schoolhouses, again, in red they're closed, in green they're open. We have, and I'll say this, that every shelter is a school, but not every school is a shelter, if that makes sense. So every shelter is a school, but not every school is a shelter. Also, what I'll remind folks is we do not open all of them at one time. We open them up in phases, and those phases would be determined on direction of the storm, type of storm, whether it's high wind or a lot of surge. So again, this is a good interactive way. You can get it on your app, the 311 app. You can go to the website, or you can again call 311. I wanted to mention about watches versus warnings. A watch is telling you to kind of watch out, something's coming 48 hours in advance. Again, this is where we depend on y'all, the media, in whatever form, to keep the citizens apprised of what's going on. You watch, get ready, and stay tuned when we go to a warning that's 36 hours out, and that truly means a hazard is imminent, and follow the direction of local folks. So the difference between watches and warnings. When you do have to evacuate, we recommend to evacuate tens of miles, not hundreds of miles. Find someone that's out east, up in Parrish, rather than driving to Georgia or to the East Coast. Find a family or friend, a hotel out of the area, and if you do have to leave in plenty of time, because again, we saw when Irma was coming through that going to Atlanta, an 8-hour trip was taking people 18 hours. Not only it took you that amount of time, you're fighting for the same roadways, the same gasoline, same hotels that not only Manatee County residents are, but everyone south of here headed north. So that's why we recommend tens of miles, not hundreds of miles. Find a friend. If you do have to evacuate, make that your decision to know in your home and know in your level, because what we saw during Hurricane Irma was people that did not need to evacuate did. So only evacuate if you do need to. So shelters, we want to say about shelters, we refer to them now as refuge of last resort. It's not the Holiday Inn, it's not the Hilton, refuge of last resort. As I said, they're at public schools. Not always that school is open. That closest is not the one you're going to go to. We say it's a lifeboat, more like a single-person kayak than a cruise ship. You have to bring all your slides, as you see in this picture. Everyone has a different type of folding chair. They bring sleeping bags, they bring mattresses, but you have to bring everything that you need, including all your supplies. A shelter, though, is a safe environment, and you are fed. So we don't want to not tell you to go to a shelter, but we want to say, if at all possible, go somewhere else and leave the shelters to those folks that have nowhere else to go. This year, we're trying to limit space due to social distancing. We're still encourage people to try to stay apart from one another because everybody's not vaccinated, but that will depend on the intensity of the storm also. So again, we recommend have a plan to go somewhere else, but if you need to go to a shelter, those are open. It is a safe place to go. We do have this year 22 general population shelters, 3 of which are pet friendly, and we have 2 special needs shelters, and both of those are pet friendly. So room for your pets at the shelters, and on the map and on the guides it will tell you which of those shelters are pet friendly. Special needs shelters, basically it's for folks, family and friends and residents that are oxygen dependent, electric dependent, and Alzheimer's and dementia. What we ask is, again, register early. Go online, mymanatee.org/needs, and register now. The reason we ask for that is, as throughout the state we saw, again, we use tropical storm, hurricane storm Irma as an example. Over 4 times the amount of people were registered, what was registered showed up. And keep this in mind, at a special needs shelter, we do provide cots, we provide medical coverage, we provide nurses. how do we plan for the proper amount of food, space, location, and medical supplies and medical help if we don't know how many people's coming? So again, we encourage you, if you have a family or friend that are in one of these three categories, to go ahead and sign up now so we know. Then you're contacted to see if you are coming, if you still need to come, but it gives us some pre-planning to set those special needs shelters up. The difference of 911 and 311 is that 911 is for emergencies. You call 911 for emergencies, fires, accidents, things like that. You call 311 here in Manatee County for routine inquiries, directions, what Sandbag locations are open, utilities issues. 311 was a new concept about 3 years ago, a really great concept that citizens don't have to remember any other number but 311. Again, utility problems, questions about shelters, or in any given day, any other questions about county government. What we started last year is a new notification system called Alert Manatee and Manatee Ready. Alert Manatee, we encourage people to sign up, and I'll have the next slide, is phone calls, text messages, and emails, where Manatee Ready is short text messages. Alert Manatee sends out emergency notifications as evacuation orders, shelter locations, boil water notices, weather alerts, and you can go on that by mymanatee.org/alertmanatee. So if you would help us get that message out, the more people that get straight messages from us, the more prepared those folks are. Manatee Ready, the director and the county leadership used this quite a bit during COVID's onset. Text Manatee Ready, all one word, Manatee Ready, all one word, to 88777, and those are short text messages to the folks. So encourage them to sign up for that. So at this point, I'm going to turn it back over to the director to go over some pointers on hurricane preparedness and hurricane kits. Director?
Thank you very much. I'm going to bring up Lieutenant Glenn Kroll. He's from our Emergency Communications Center. He will be showing off all of our supplies here for those interested in what those are. I'm sure we all know what they are. But so first up is a sleeping bag. As Steve mentioned, you have to bring whatever you're going to sleep on. If you do choose to come to a shelter, you will need a sleeping bag with you if you come to that. Also, I'm going to talk a little bit after what happens after a hurricane and why a disaster kit is very important. Disinfectant wipes, obviously we all know why we need those, especially if you're in a shelter or after a hurricane and you're in your home. Disinfectant wipes will become very important as you might not have water. Masks, obviously you're going to be in close quarters after a hurricane or sheltering during a hurricane. Camera, or your cell phone has a camera. Obviously a toothbrush. Any medicine that you may need. Pharmacies will not be open during a hurricane, and most of the times they will not have power after hurricane. So make sure that your medications that you take daily is available and you're stocked up on that. Plastic trash bags so that you can keep your waste with you. Anything that you, after you use it, you can put that away. Zip ties, and that's used for a lot of different things. After a hurricane, there's damage to the areas that you are in. You can use that to secure things. Obviously, a first aid kit. Plenty of water. Make sure that you have potable drinking water. That, like I said, after a hurricane, and as we prepare for a hurricane, especially if you live on the barrier islands, your water will be shut off as we evacuate the islands, and we do that to protect the water system. Glasses, if you wear glasses. Sunglasses after a storm, obviously. Sunscreen, you're going to be out in the open. You might not be able to return to your home. And sometimes it's after a hurricane, a direct hit, it's hard to find shelter immediately. So you could be out into the sun for quite a while. Safety whistles in case you need to track anybody down or get anybody's attention. Flashlight as power is expected to be out. Obviously toilet paper, matches. Can opener, as Steve mentioned, we always ask those that are preparing for a hurricane If you're without power and you're without water, you will need a can opener to get to whatever ready-made food that you have to get you through until services can get back up. A weather radio, always a good thing, always something that you should have, no matter what, if it's hurricane season or throughout the year. For inclement weather, we're getting into Florida's inclement weather time of the year right now, tornadoes, tropical storms. That weather radio will save your life in the middle of the night as you're sleeping and you don't expect a tornado to pop up. That will alert you to that. Gloves, for obvious reasons. Bug spray. I can't stress bug spray enough. Plastic tarp for sheltering or to keep the weather or anything else out. And then a thumb drive. In the thumb drive, you're going to put all your important information, anything that is important to you, self-identifying things as well on the thumb drive and your data. So that is a storm kit there. Doesn't take up much room, but we always encourage those that have not to make a storm kit now. I cannot stress that we always do a preparation before a hurricane comes. If we were to get a direct landfall of a hurricane, you should expect that services that everyone is generally well used to using, such as cell phones, power, water, life's everyday things will not be available. It takes a while for all of that to come back online. That's a part of our recovery process, and we work very hard to get that back online, but it will take a while, especially things that you take for granted every day. So with that, here's some ways to stay connected. I think you guys all know how to stay connected with us. We work very closely with you guys. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for Manatee Gov. And then public safety, we also push out important notices, and that's at MCG Public Safety on Twitter. So with that, I can take some questions, and then we'll go to the EOC, do a brief overview of the EOC, and then our sandbag fillers are out there. Does anybody have any questions?
So we are still seeing COVID-related restrictions in shelters. I know last year that was the big message you wanted us to push out, that there was not going to be enough space in shelters. We didn't have as much space in shelters as the amount of people who sheltered during Hurricane Irma. Are we looking at the same problem?
Well, we're always, COVID is not gone. However, the numbers are getting better and better as we move through the weeks and the months. So we try and reserve space safe enough, but it just depends on demand for a shelter. We're certainly not going to turn anybody away during an evacuation, and that's why we're encouraging those to make a plan now to go with neighbors, friends, and family outside of the evacuation zone. Shelter should always be your last resort.
And a lot of times on mobile homes, their mobile home is in a zone that's not being evacuated, so they feel that they don't have to evacuate.
Right.
I mean, that seems to be a problem. What should they do?
Yeah, so when we make the call to start evacuating because we're under watches and warnings for a hurricane, if you live in a mobile home or manufactured home, you are part of the first evacuation to move to a different area. Mobile homes and manufactured homes are not designed for strong hurricanes, and they will not survive direct landfall of a hurricane. We've seen it plenty times.
And regardless of what zone it's in?
Regardless,
Yeah,
absolutely.
It means you gotta go.
Yes. Any others? Just some housekeeping tips. Our Animal Services Division within Public Safety has been working with our commissioners to bring pop-up animal vaccine clinics to the community. We've had our first one with Commissioner Van Ostenbridge out in West Bradenton at GT Bray Park. We're scheduling another one this month over in Trailer Estates, and we'll be doing those throughout the county. That is a great initiative for those who need to get their animals vaccinated in case they have to go to a shelter. We do require that your animals are fully vaccinated, and you bring those licenses and their records with them. So it is all free. Look at our web pages for the upcoming dates, but we'll be scheduling those through June and July, free to the community. Bring your pets out and get them vaccinated and ready for hurricane season as well.
So what would you say is the most important message for us to get across this year?
Make a plan now. This is the 7th year in a row that a named storm has popped up prior to hurricane season. It's not going to be any different this year than it is for many others. We were a little grateful last year, but we do expect it to be an active hurricane season. And if you make a plan now, when we do call for evacuations and we get prepared for a storm coming, you'll be in a much better place. All right, so we'll go over to the EOC, and then our sandbag machine, filling machine is out front as well.